Hello, everybody. I never know when I actually hit the record button, and then I don't edit anything ever, so I'm awkward. Anyway, hi everybody. I'm Charisse, and I'm here with Vanessa today. She is ArcanumIter on Instagram. I'll link her information and her website and everything down below in the comments in the description box, whatever. But today's just going to be a super casual hangout kind of conversation, and we're going to be talking about ghosts and haunted places. Specifically relating to Canada, because Vanessa is in Canada, and I feel like we always hear about haunted places in the United States. We hear about haunted places in Europe and all over the world, but it's like we never hear anything about Canada, ever.
I know. What about us?
I know, right? Poor little forgotten cousins up north. But I mean, clearly, there's people there. Canada has a history.
Happens, for sure.
It's haunted.
Yeah.
So welcome. And
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Whenever I know of someone who is like into ghosts or paranormal activity, I'm just like, yes, I have people to talk to about this.
I know, and I'm that awkward person too when I'm out in public. Like, I'm not good with the small talk when I'm meeting people. So I just want to get down to it. Like, have you ever had a paranormal experience? Tell me.
Because that's what really matters in relationships.
I don't care what you do for a living and how many kids you have.
Right.
Tell me about the ghosts that you've seen.
Exactly.
I'm glad we're on the same page here.
Yeah. How haunted are you?
I love it.
Yeah.
Sixth Sense haunted, like on a level of Sixth Sense to normal.
Right. Right.
Anyway, so I guess before we get into it, what is your experience with the paranormal before we go specifically to some of the, I know you have a couple locations in Canada that you're going to tell us about, but
so
what is your personal experience?
I've always been fascinated by paranormal stories, by paranormal phenomena. Ever since I was a child, it was kind of like I was the one who was like stuck in front of the TV watching all the scary shows and like all the documentaries on like aliens and ghosts and haunted castles and stuff. And my parents were like, okay, like time to like watch some cartoons now. And I'm like, no, I need to know. So it's always been an interest to me. I've always been open to that. And it wasn't until my early teens that I've actually had paranormal experiences occur in my life that scared the crap out of me.
Well, now you got to go into it. Like what?
Right. Okay. So, yeah. And I think they came, all of this stuff kind of happened to me because they could, they were like attracted to my awareness of them. Mm-hmm. Because I was open enough to them, they would kind of appear and they're like, hey, you ready for us? You want us? We're here. So not that I provoked them or anything. I think because I am a sensitive person, I'm an empath, so I can feel space. I can feel the energy of different kinds of spaces, different houses. I can feel the energy of land, and I can definitely tap into residual spiritual energy, paranormal activity, and so I feel like they knew of my sensitivities. They could sense it on their own, and they're just like, okay, we can fool around with her now because she'll notice. Mm-hmm. So I was about 14, and my parents got divorced, and my mom decided to buy a new home, but the new home wasn't ready yet. So it was being built, and in the meantime, we had to live somewhere. So we ended up moving in with my aunt and my uncle just down the street. And so when I was growing up, every house they owned, there had always kind of been this paranormal activity going on. Lights shutting on and off, washer, dryer turning on and off. My uncle actually saw an apparition enter his room one night and came to him. Yeah. And so he's also a sensitive person too. Not that he reads about this stuff or anything. He's just a naturally sensitive, intuitive person. And they see his light and they are drawn to him. So I grew up, going to every house that they lived in and kind of like waiting for something to happen, waiting, I would hear these amazing stories of him seeing this apparition in the room and like hearing footsteps upstairs when no one was home. And like, I always kind of wanted these things to happen to me, and they never did until I moved in with them when I was about 14. And this was a new house that they had been in too. So it wasn't like their house was haunted. It was old. The land, like it had nothing to do with the land. We think as a family, it literally, this person or entity is literally attracted to my uncle and follows.
That's what I was going to say. It sounds like your uncle's haunted.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So we move in, and I just remember having things happen to me specifically. Like I was singled out.
Oh, wow.
Nothing happened to my mom. Nothing happened to my sister. And first the things, these occurrences were kind of just like really subtle, and you didn't really know if it was like a ghost or not. Like,
yeah,
but
one of those, like maybe it was the wind, or
right,
maybe I misplaced something.
Right.
Yeah.
But it slowly started to ramp up to things that were terrifying and could not, there was no outside explanation for things that were occurring to me. And as a sensitive, I could feel there was someone there with me. So for example, I was, this scared the crap out of me. I was doing my homework one night. So I'm in 9th grade, I'm doing my homework at the kitchen table, kind of late because I'm a teenager. Everyone's sleeping, right? Because they got to go to work in the morning. So I'm at the table studying and doing my homework, and the TV's off. Like, it's late at night, so I'm very quiet. And I'm at the table, and there behind me was an opening to the dining room, which just gave me the creeps. Like, it was so dark in there. It was so, made my skin crawl. So I was like right dead in the middle of homework, concentrating, and all of a sudden something broke me out of my concentration, and I thought someone was behind me. So I told myself, oh, it must be my little cousins coming down to get water or something. And I continued writing, but I didn't hear any footsteps. So I turned around, and the dining room was absolutely pitch black. And I'm like, okay, I know that there's something approaching me. I gotta get the F out of here. Like, this is getting too much.
That's the worst feeling ever. Yeah. Oh, I hate that.
It's like this impending doom. And also it's this weird sense that I have. I could hear static in my ear before something is about to happen.
Ooh, you give me goosebumps.
Yeah.
I love it. It's so creepy, but I love it.
Yeah, I know, right? Thank God we're doing this during the day, because I'm like so scared recounting these stories at night. But anyway, so I could hear the static building in my ear, so I knew something was about to happen. So as I'm collecting my textbooks and my homework and my notebooks, I'm just about to get up and leave the kitchen. I just felt this sense of dread wash over me for no reason. I could never fully explain it, because I've never felt that way in my life. I've never felt so scared of something that I couldn't see. I can only describe it as a flood of dread. Like, I knew something terrible was going to happen if I stayed. So that's when I immediately grabbed my stuff, and I was about to bolt out of the living room and just run upstairs. But something compelled me to look at the kitchen window. I don't know why. I was running right past it, but something made me look at the kitchen window. And as the second that I looked at the blinds, the drawstring of the blinds started swinging back and forth, back and forth. And I was like, no, man, no. Like, I've been down here for like 3 hours. This is crazy. There was nothing that could make the blinds move. There was, and there's no way to explain it besides there's an evil presence here that clearly doesn't like me, and it wants me out. So I ran upstairs, and I was freaking and but trying not to wake anyone up. So I pretty much didn't sleep that night.
Yeah.
And this was just kind of like the beginning of living in this haunted space. And it literally felt like torture for me. I obviously had people to share my experiences with, because my aunt and uncle were very like aware of the things that happened, because they also felt things inside their home too. Like my aunt would be sleeping, and in the middle of the night, she'd feel a cold, like an ice cold hand grab her arm.
Nope.
Yeah. Yeah. My uncle was showering one day, and like we're all at school, right? Like he came home early from work, and he was showering in the master bedroom, and he got out, and as he tells the story, he literally says like the bathroom door, like someone was trying to get in. Someone was like opening the knob, like vigorously, and banging and banging on the door. And he was like, Vanessa, I'm in. Like he thought it was me. I don't know why. He's like, I'm in here, guys. Like, don't come in. Like I just got out of the shower. Like, give me a freaking minute. And when no one answered, he began to get like scared.
Yeah.
So the door was like almost coming off the hinges, he said. And it was banging, and the knob was going. And he was like, okay, what the actual F is going on? All of a sudden it stops. He finally like quickly gets dressed and like is rushing through the house to see what the emergency is. He's like, who's trying to get in? Like, hello, is anyone home? And like, what's going on? And none of us were home. My sister and I, my cousins, my mom and my aunt were like, they were at work. Like he was home alone. And so that's like, it's this constant, like, you never know when something's going to happen. You can't even be alone in the shower. Like, heaven forbid you take a calming shower, because they're just ready to like pounce on you.
I don't like that. Like when paranormal activity and stuff happens in like your personal moments, like you're taking a shower or you're sleeping, like that's not cool. Like, you know, that's very intrusive. So whatever happened with the paranormal, like, does he still have paranormal activity happening? Or?
Yeah, they do. And now my cousins are much older. So they're not home as much, but this energy is really like a trickster type of shit disturber. So they'll misplace keys, and then, you know, it will create arguments within the family, you know, like silly little argument, like, you know, things that, like, Mom, where'd you put my keys? Like, why would you misplace them? She's like, I didn't touch them. So it creates a dysfunction. And they've used sage in the house, and they've really tried to clean it out. And the previous homes they've lived into, they've actually called a priest to come in and bless the home, but that didn't stop anything from happening at all.
Yeah, that's like there was at my grandma's old house, so much stuff happened there, and that reminds me of that, because things would bang on the doors and everything. And yeah, like every year, I forget what Catholic thing it was, but my grandma would have a priest come out and bless the house every year, and do anything either.
And you know, it kind of like settles things down for like a week, and then things just start ramping back up again.
It's so creepy.
I have one more. Well, I have many, but I can share one more bathroom personal time story involving ghosts encroaching in my personal space. And this is actually the scariest one of the scariest ones that happened. So again, I was about 14, and like, I had this really weird phobia at the time of pennies. Now, I didn't like
interesting phobia.
Right. And it's cool because Canada like took them out of circulation, so pennies don't exist here anymore.
Oh, really? They don't exist?
No.
That's so weird.
I know.
Wait, how in the world does that happen? Like, how? I'm so confused with like purchasing stuff. Like, so do your totals never come up to like $7.37 or like?
Right. So we round. So if it's like $7.37, it'll be like $7.40.
Oh.
Yeah. But if you pay like by card, then you have to pay the exact amount.
That's funny.
It's so, hey, but guess what? That worked out for me. I was like celebrating. I was like, this is the best day of my life. I didn't have to touch pennies anymore. People were like, what is wrong with you?
Oh my gosh. Don't come hang out here in the United States. They're everywhere. I mean, I always find pennies on the floor and ground and stuff.
Yeah. And people were like, Vanessa, they're lucky. I'm like, no. Like they're disgusting. Like, don't ever show me pennies.
I wonder what that is. Like, past life something? That's
could be. I never looked into it because since it's been out of circulation, it's kind of been like out of sight, out of mind. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. Huh. But the ghosts picked up on it for sure.
Oh, so, nice.
So it was like one Friday night, I was at my friend's house, and like they were teasing me about my phobia, and so they were kind of like taunting me and making fun of me, and it was all good and fun. It was funny, and they were kind of like, "Hey, look, do you want to like touch a penny?" And I'm like, "Ew, gross! Like, get away from me." Anyway, the following
week, touch a penny. I'm sorry, not like trying to like laugh at your phobia, because phobias are real. Like,
yeah.
And I have some phobias too that my husband makes fun of me about. And I'm like, I understand, like, it's a stupid thing to be afraid of.
Right.
I can't help it.
But I can't help
trying to like make fun of you, but
no, not at all.
It is also kind of funny.
No, it's hilarious, but it was like scary for me.
Yeah.
So that was on a Friday night. And then the following week, the Friday night, but I was at home at my aunt and my uncle's house. Again, everyone's sleeping. It's a late Friday night. It's like 12 o'clock. I'm at home and I'm starting to unwind and, wind down from the night. I get changed in my pajamas and I head to the washroom. And I'm like washing my face and stuff. And I was just leaning over the counter and looking into the mirror. I was like doing something with my face. And all of a sudden, I felt this chill run down my spine. So as I was leaning over, it's like I felt someone touch my back lightly with this cold, this cold touch. And it gave me the shivers. Mm-hmm. So I stood up and I literally like shook my pajama shirt. I was like, oh, this is so gross. And when I shook my shirt, a penny fell off my back.
Shut up. I just got crazy goosebumps. Yeah. Shut up.
I screamed so loud.
That made my eyes water.
Yeah, I woke up everyone I was literally like, okay, like this is way too much. Not only are you here with me, you are now manifesting physical objects. Like, get out of here.
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
Yeah, it was so terrifying. I shrieked, and my uncle came in right away. Like, he just knew something happened. So I let him in the washroom, and I was like panicking and freaking and like panting, and I was like hyperventilating. I was so scared.
Yeah.
And so he picked up the penny off the ground and he kind of held it in his hands, and he like closed his eyes for a minute. I'm like, what is this dude doing? And he literally like just kind of, I guess, tried to tune in with the energy. And so he held it in his hand with his eyes closed. And he's like, they're screwing around with you. They're like literally trying to frighten you. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, well, they're doing a pretty good damn job of it.
Yeah, they have succeeded.
They've succeeded. And so I kept that penny in my room just as kind of like a marker to say like, yeah, I know you're like trying to scare the crap out of me, but like, I know it's a game. Mm-hmm. And then one day that penny just disappeared. Ugh. Yeah. So
that's bizarre.
There are plenty more other stories of that house. But maybe we could save that for another day.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to do this kind of chat all the time.
Yeah.
That is terrifying. That's,
yeah. So I lived there for like approximately like 9 or 10 months. And I have to say that 9 or 10 months, in the beginning, I thought I was going kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if my mom totally believes in all this stuff, but I think she was trying to downplay it so she wouldn't freak me out or I wouldn't freak myself out. But I mean, we couldn't deny the things that were happening, like physical objects manifesting,
right?
Physical things like moving in rooms, like before my very eyes. Like it was pretty intense. And wow. I was glad to pack my bags and get the frig out.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, so see there, Canada's haunted.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, that is creepy. That's
yeah. Crazy. So do you want to move on to the stories that I got to share?
Yeah.
About Okay.
Okay. And I have no idea. Normally I like to do like some sort of research like before I talk on topics and stuff. But yeah, this I have no idea. So I know absolutely no haunted places at all in Canada. I actually don't really know anything in Canada, to be honest. So.
You gotta come see us. You gotta come see us.
Apparently, I didn't even have been to Canada and I didn't even remember it. My mom's like, because I was little, and she's like, "You've been to Canada?" I was like, "I have."
Where'd you go?
I don't even know. I don't remember. I'm sure. Well, I'm in Ohio, so I'm sure it was somewhere like.
Yeah, like north.
Yeah, like in the Eastern time zone. So maybe it was somewhere near.
In Ontario, for sure.
Yeah, actually, you know what? It might have been Ontario.
Yeah. Cool.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Well, you got to come back. So
to Canada, and this was back in the day before you needed a passport to go there. You just would.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. You used to be able to just like drive over the border. Wow. I mean, I think you had to do like a little check-in thing at the border, but you didn't need a passport.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you got to come back, but come back in the summer because unless you're like freezing your ass off in like minus 20 Celsius, like
I'm
just
good.
Stay where you are.
Ohio is terrible enough for winter, so
right. You guys have like the same climate, so
maybe I'll come and we can go check out some ghost places.
Yes, that would be amazing.
All right, so maybe it'll be one of these places that you're
about. Yeah. Oh, we could because so the second story I wanted to share is in a Toronto location, so we can definitely do that. But the first story I want to share is actually from Halifax, Nova Scotia. That's on the east coast of Canada. And I have a little bit of a personal experience there as well. Mm-hmm. So a few years back, my sister and I were doing some traveling on the east coast. We headed to Halifax, Nova Scotia, and it's gorgeous there. My gosh, the landscape is just stunning, right beside the ocean. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. And, you know, besides venturing out into nature and hitting up the restaurants and stuff, we also managed to find a ghost tour.
Yay! Yeah. I love that. You're like me when I travel. Yeah. I'm like, where's the ghost tour? I know there's a local ghost tour.
Yeah, like sign me up immediately because I need to know. I need to.
The cemeteries. Do you do that too when you travel? Yes. Like, all right, where's the closest cemeteries?
Exactly.
The oldest.
We have to, yeah, you have to, right?
All right, we're just travel buddies from now on.
Oh my gosh, I'm down. I'm so down.
Love it.
Okay, so we were traveling in Nova Scotia. We found the ghost tour, and I had no idea about this, but Halifax has a connection to the sinking of the Titanic.
Wow.
Yeah, so back in like 1912, when that whole tragedy happened, news spread across the world quite quickly because they were also calling out for help.
Yeah.
So a few hours after the first messages had gone through that it was sinking and like SOS, like please come get us, ships that were based in Halifax were actually commissioned to go out and recover bodies.
Ooh.
Okay, so the tour guide was like kind of telling us about the whole thing, and he said that the ships that sailed out actually returned 209 bodies back to Canada.
Oh my gosh.
Right. And so, you know, they went out searching for survivors as well, but that they just unfortunately found deceased people kind of floating there. So they took them all back to Halifax, and 150 of them were actually laid to rest there in the city, in those cemeteries. Wow. Yeah.
Unclaimed, obviously, I'm sure. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. So the more prominent, like political figures or business people, they obviously had more money, and their families had the money to get them shipped back home for proper burials. But 150 people were still unclaimed, and they're buried in Halifax.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I wonder how they did. What am I trying to say? How they figured out who was who with the deceased, because it's not like you could easily fly families and people to like come identify this body.
Totally.
And I don't feel like people had identification on them when the ship went down.
Maybe some of them did. Maybe more of like the business people were carrying like some sort of documentation or business papers, or that way they could be identified. But many of them weren't. So they were brought to Halifax, and they were brought to a funeral home called John and Co. Funeral Home in the city.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously in 1912, they're like in this small like seaside town, they don't have the facility. You know, they're just not equipped to deal with that many bodies.
Yeah, that's a lot of bodies.
That's a lot of bodies. So they're doing what they got to do in the funeral home and then have nowhere to put them. So what they had to do, unfortunately, was put the bodies in caskets and lay them out throughout the street.
Oh, wow.
So the caskets were stacked on top of each other on this road.
That's crazy.
Right. And we were on this ghost tour and we're like, you mean this road? Right where we're standing? Yeah. So, you know, it's what they had to do what they had to do. The bodies were stacked. So now fast forward to present day, that funeral home is no longer a funeral home, but a restaurant.
Oh.
It's called the Five Fishermen Restaurant. And so the tour guide was telling us that, yeah, this place is super haunted. And patrons and the staff have all kinds of paranormal experiences and stories. And they actually, the restaurant actually shares some of their stories on their website. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
They recount stories of cutlery shifting to one side of the table and then dropping to the ground.
Wow.
They, have witnessed glasses, like bar glasses, like flying off the shelves and like crashing and smashing on the floor.
Scary.
Yeah, sinks and taps like turning on and off by themselves. Like major, there's always this story of like a major presence surrounding the patrons there or the staff there. It's like they can't get rid of it. It's a constant thing that they have to experience and feel. They see gray apparitions walking around, disappearing and popping up, whispers, names being called out, people arguing in the restaurants before it's open and after it's closed. So like in private rooms, the staff would hear arguments happening and they'd like walk in and nobody's in there.
No.
Yeah. There's an old man with long gray hair and like a black trench coat that is frequently seen walking around the restaurant. And there's also, I read a story about a waitress who actually was apparently slapped in the face.
Oh my gosh.
And it left like a red handprint on her face. And she's like, no one slapped, like, no, there was no human that did this to me. Like it was actually out of nowhere. I
wonder why they're so pissed there. It sounds like those ghosts are like not happy.
They're not happy. And like again, very disruptive, right? Like smashing cutlery and smashing glasses. And there's also an old man who shows up in a mirror. So when you're looking in a mirror, you see someone behind you.
Mirrors are so creepy on their own. Creepy. And then throw in a ghost looking back at you.
Right? And so people will be standing at the bar or whatever and see this old man like in really close vicinity and they're like, oh, like what? And they turn around and there's nobody behind them. They're like, okay, get me out of here. So the tour guide was sharing all of this. So my sister and I were like, yeah, of course we're making reservations.
I was just about to say, please tell me you ate there.
We did. We made reservations the very next night.
I love it. So, did anything creepy happen?
So, yes, but I didn't see any spirits or apparitions. What happened was when we first got there, you know how you walk in a restaurant and you're greeted by like the hostess and kind of like a little waiting area? Mm-hmm. So instantly when I walked in, I was walking towards this, the hostess booth, but all of a sudden I felt like I was in a fishbowl. Do you know that feeling when you're just like, you know, you've entered into, it's like you've entered into like this weird portal?
Yes. Oh, that happened to me at this hotel, this haunted hotel one time.
Oh, I need to hear about that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Finish your story.
So it was like the same thing. So I was like so excited and like I'm gonna eat seafood and I'm like walking in and then all of a sudden it was just like whoa, 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 whoa. It was like slow motion. and the sounds around me were muffled, and I couldn't really hear what people were saying. And I felt very floaty in there. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I couldn't really hear what was going on. I knew I was there. It was just this weird moment. And I was snapped out of it by my sister elbowing me, because she's like, the waitress is talking to you. Can you answer her? And I was like, whoa. I didn't even see the waitress a foot in front of my face asking me like how many seats I need. Yeah. Or like, you know, where I'd like to be seated. So she's talking to me, and I was so like, I didn't even see her. I saw like through her. It was just the weirdest thing ever. And the best way I can describe it is that like my head was in a fishbowl. Mm-hmm. Everything was muffled around me. Yeah. So anyway, I snapped out of it. We got seated, and then so I was kind of like anticipating like scary stuff to be happening. Yeah. Honestly, the restaurant's so loud in there. There's people talking, and like you're really sitting really close by, like, you know, other patrons. So you can't really like focus on any subtleties that occur. Yeah. It's too loud. So I was just like, okay, well, we'll have to come back maybe towards closing time or something. But yeah, so I didn't see anything, but I definitely felt the atmosphere change. Yeah. And it almost like I stepped into like this weird portal. And it's definitely a weird space to be. My sister was fine though. She didn't feel anything, but so yeah.
Weird. I always wonder with places where there's a lot of like death and stuff, and not necessarily that a lot of people died in that space, but a lot of death was there, a lot of dead bodies and everything. Yeah. So I always wonder if that kind of creates a portal.
Totally.
You know, like wherever that is. Mm-hmm. I also think it's weird when there's restaurants in funeral homes. Like, like how does it go from a funeral home to a restaurant? And who's like, I'll buy that building and I'm going to put a restaurant. Like, I don't know. It's just such a weird little crossroads there.
Yeah. It's kind of gross. Like it kind of turns my stomach when I really, really think about it. And because we're sensitive, right? We pick up on that stuff more and those subtle cues and like the way people feel in there. So then we carry that with us, and we're just kind of like, okay, well, I don't know about this. You know, maybe this wasn't a good idea, but yeah.
That's interesting.
It's interesting.
Yeah, that fishbowl effect. So my friend Nikki and I, it was when we were going to investigate the West Virginia Penitentiary, Penitentiary. We stopped at a hotel, and I can't for the life of me remember what the hotel's name is, but it's an old hotel somewhere in West Virginia. Wow. And we stopped there to eat, and there's a hotel room that's supposed to be haunted. So we go up to that floor, and we didn't know, you know, where the room is. As soon as we get onto the floor, we're both like, do you feel weird? Like it just kind of felt like lopsided almost.
Yes.
Or like really weird. And then I kind of just started like walking towards this door, and it was kind of the same thing. Like I didn't really know where I was. I wasn't looking at door numbers.
Or it's almost like you're in a trance.
Yeah, and I was just kind of like walking to it, and I'm like, I feel so weird right now. Come here. And she's like, what? She walks up. She's like, yeah, you're just really lightheaded and just kind of feel just like you said, like floaty. And I'm like, yes. And then I look up at the door and see the door number, and I'm like, look at what door we're in front of. And it was the haunted room.
Oh my gosh. It dragged you there.
Yes, it was so weird. It was so weird. But then there's somebody in there, so we couldn't knock on the door.
Like a human. Okay.
Yeah, there was a human staying in the room. And we're like, we wanted to knock on it. Right. But yeah, it was the weirdest, like you said, like literally just like walking into like totally different.
Yeah, you go on like autopilot. You're like not in control anymore, and you just kind of go with the flow, and it's like something is pushing you, something is guiding you there, and it's bringing you to a place that, you know, and that they want you to feel and experience, and like all this crazy stuff. I have another restaurant story actually, but I'll share that for the next time we chat.
Oh, okay. Maybe we can do a whole thing on like restaurants, haunted restaurants.
Right. Oh yeah. That's my second story as well, but in Toronto.
Oh, nice.
So I wanted to talk about the Keg Mansion in downtown Toronto. Charisse, I'm not sure if you have the Keg franchise in the States.
I don't think so.
Okay, it's a steakhouse.
Oh, okay, no.
So yeah, it's a franchise. It's a steakhouse, and this house was actually a residential home built in 1867.
Oh, pretty.
In a mid-19th century Gothic revival style. So very like pointed architecture, very dark wood paneling.
I love it. Can I live there?
like elegant banisters, like very dark and dramatic. So it's quite a beautiful space. And upon the death of the original owner in 1880, the mansion was sold to another prominent Canadian family known as the Masseys. And if there are any Torontonians watching this, you will have definitely heard of the Masseys because they are the family that built Massey Hall. So Massey Hall in Toronto is this amazing old concert venue that puts on they have the best acoustics. So the concerts in there are just unbelievable. Everyone in Toronto flocks there, but not everyone knows of this family's history.
Okay.
The Masseys also at one time owned this old residential mansion.
Real quick, do they own the pizza chain? Massey's Pizza?
Never heard of it.
Oh, really? It's a pizza chain. I mean, it's a smaller one here. I don't know if it's anywhere other than Ohio, but...
Oh, interesting.
Just because that's it's not like a super common last
name.
Oh,
hold on. I think they have a connection to the States, the Masseys.
Maybe they are.
I think I read somewhere that they have a connection to... Oh my gosh, I have to get back to you on that. So it's a family that would travel from the States to Canada and they go back and forth.
Yeah.
Is there a place in Ohio called Euclid or
Yes.
Okay, Charisse, I think, oh my God, this is why I have to fact check this, but I'm pretty sure I've read that the Masseys traveled from Ohio to Toronto.
That's so funny. So it probably is the same family then.
And they've also, they named a street in Toronto Euclid. So they took it from Ohio.
There's a street in Columbus, Ohio, where I am called Euclid. Yeah, Euclid. It's in, it's northern Ohio. So it's an inner ring suburb of Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay. Oh my gosh, this is wild because you're like in Ohio.
That's funny.
Creepy connections.
Now you got me looking up all this.
Yeah. I swear I read that they traveled back and forth from the States to Canada. So
that's funny. Okay.
Okay. So yeah. They bought the house and they lived in it. And it remained with the Massey family until 1915. So from 1915 on, then it began this like continuous cycle of ever changing commercial development and property. So, and today it's a restaurant. So history has it that the owner's daughter, Lillian Massey, actually died in the home. She was ill. She fell ill and died in the home. And died in her bedroom, which is now the women's washroom on the second floor of this restaurant establishment. So patrons have been reported to literally be like in the washroom, all good, and then all of a sudden they're like shrieking and freaking out and like running and like just like booking it. So in the washroom, it's reported that there's always this heavy presence watching over you. The doors, the latches of the restroom stalls will open, and the door will swing open on their
own. Again with the no privacy.
Like, what's with the no privacy?
They're so rude.
Honestly, it's so true. Like women are on the toilets and their doors swinging open. Like, gosh. Oh gosh. Hand dryers would be turning on and off, the taps again on and off, lights flickering. And so Lillian at the time had this a maid, and apparently the maid was so distraught that Lillian got sick. So the story has it that she hung herself, and she hung herself from a banner right outside the bedroom door.
Oh, wow.
So if you can just imagine like the bedroom door, which is the washroom, you step out of the washroom and you're in a hallway, and it's like this little vestibule thing. It's like a decorative element of the architecture where it's this like cutout vestibule that you can look down through and see the main floor. So it's like an open concept kind of thing with this banister around it for protection. Well, they've added it now so nobody slips through. But apparently she hung herself on that.
Oh.
So people have reported seeing a hanging woman in this house.
Ooh, that's creepy.
Right. And I've also read reports of people leaving the washroom feeling very uneasy and then seeing this lady in a long black old-fashioned gown just standing outside the bathroom door, like hanging out on the vestibule. And they're like kind of walk by her like, hi.
Yeah.
But she doesn't say anything. And so one patron actually asked the hostess, and they're like, do you have like any sort of like old timey entertainment going on here? Like there's a woman upstairs in this gorgeous black gown, but like she's kind of random. And they're like, no, we have no such thing going on tonight. So like that's an automatic like, okay, ghost stories they're happening and they're true. So yeah, in that area of the vestibule, people have reported being pushed. So if you're standing too close to it, they feel like pushed and shoved as if to get thrown over the balcony.
Oh, that's scary.
Even children have reported like the ghosts have like, they just cross all the lines.
Right? Like you don't mess with children and you don't mess with personal space.
Right? Like just leave.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's definitely freaked people out. They've reported being pushed. They've reported seeing the woman hanging there from the main floor. There's also reports of pitter-patter and children running through the bar area. And like, obviously children are not seated in a bar area. And like, it's just weird that people are like, oh, I thought I just heard like a child laughing, or like, oh, I thought I heard like little kids' footsteps here and there. And it's like the weirdest, creepiest thing. And there's also children have seen a little boy playing on the staircase with a train set. So they're like, cool, I want to go play with the train set too. And they're like, Mom, can I go play? And when they turn around to go look at the little boy on the stairs, he's gone.
I wonder who he is. Is there
I wonder
a story?
who he is. Yeah. I'm not sure. I have not come across anything regarding his history, but there are stories of children's laughter and playing and like.
And why is that so creepy? Like, why are little ghost children's laughter? It's like the creepiest of the creepy. Like,
because it's like so innocent. Is it really? Because it kind of sounds like.
Really though. Oh my gosh! So this was. I was going to save this story for one of my saddest ghost story things. I was investigating at a private residence, and the woman had a young kid and she was pregnant. But her son would see a little ghost kid around the house, and then they always had like crazy stuff happen. So we went there to investigate, and we're sitting in one of the rooms. It was her son's room, but so much stuff happened that they switched rooms. So it was just a room at this point. And I'm sitting there and nothing was really happening. And we tried to do like an EVP session and nothing was happening. So I'm like, all right, let's get up and go, downstairs or whatever. So we get up to go, and then I shut off the recorder. And when I listened to it back, because this was like forever back in the day, you had like analog recorders.
Right.
So I didn't listen to it then. I listened to it like the next day. And when I say like, all right, let's get up to go, and we get up to leave, you hear a little kid's voice say, "Why are you leaving me?" And I'm like, oh my God, I wish that I had heard that at that time.
I just got chills everywhere.
It was hard. I mean, it was like a little kid totally like heartbroken. Like, why are you leaving me? Like,
oh my gosh.
What did I do wrong? Like, what? And I was like, oh my God.
My heart just sank.
I know. And I'm like, oh, like had I known at the time, I totally would have, you know, tried to like console him or I don't know, something, but it was heartbreaking. I still think about that. I'm like, oh my God, is there just this little ghost boy wandering around wondering why people are leaving him?
Yeah.
Like, so sad. But it's my little kid ghost story.
Oh my gosh.
It was heartbreaking.
And it's creepy, like when you do the playback and then you're like, oh my God, this happened. I heard this, they said this, and like just makes my skin crawl. But do you still have that equipment?
I don't have it anymore. It was at the time my ex-fiance. Well, my fiance at the time, my now ex.
Right. Now ex. Yeah.
Yeah. And
yeah, he could keep it.
Yeah. And he had the recording and everything. But.
Oh man, I have not ever played around with EVP stuff, but I would love to like use something in addition to my own senses, just to pick something else up and record it so it's proof.
Yeah, it definitely helps. That's what I like, because I'm such a believer, like 100% believer, but I'm such a skeptic too, and I love to have like proof to back up things. And I'm like, I'm sensitive and I can feel things when I go in, but I never use that as my, like, all the times I've gone investigating, I've never been like, oh yeah, this place is haunted because I felt this. Like I use what I sense and feel as kind of like a guide to like, let's go to this room, or, to ask certain questions during an EVP session. Right. But yeah, I need to have that like concrete, like photo proof, audio proof, video proof, something. But yeah. And it's so much easier now with like recordings and stuff, because back in the day, like, oh my God, it was so funny to get the recording onto my computer. I had to do all this crazy, like hook up the analog recorder to this thing and have a cord to this. And it was
like there's wires everywhere, right?
Yeah. And the audio also isn't as clear because you have the sound of the tape recording as well. So it's always.
Yeah. So there's always like that scratching noise running.
And so we would have to like clean up the audio. Anyway, it's so much easier now because with like digital recorders, you can just totally listen to your EVP session right then and there, which is pretty cool. So.
That is so cool. Yeah. I gotta get back into like exploring these old places and like bringing equipment with me to actually like.
That's what I need to do too, because I don't bring any sort of equipment with me.
Yeah.
And I do all the, like, I try to do like impromptu, like spur of the moment investigations whenever we're on vacation anywhere. Right. I'm like, let's stop here. This place is haunted. Let's go here to like see what I can feel, or like I'll snap pictures and stuff too. But yeah, I need to just start carrying like an on-the-go ghost kit.
Right. When I was in Salem, like 2 years ago for Halloween, we went on a ghost tour there as well.
Well, yeah, there you definitely got to.
Yeah, like we of course had to. And, there was like 20 people with us on the tour, and some people had like EVP apps that they were using. And it was like making that terrible, like nails on a chalkboard.
The white noise sound.
Yeah, the white noise. And I'm like, guys, like I can't hear what the guide is saying. They're all like,
that's kind of
rallying together, and it's like this white noise build up in my head, and I'm like, okay, you're gonna like scare the ghosts away with never mind capture them.
That's so rude while the guide is trying to tell you stories and they're doing that.
Like, I did. I found it quite rude and disruptive, but it was just so silly, and like I don't know, there was like a voice that said like, nope, nothing here, like keep going. Like I don't know what kind of app it was, but it was just like it was annoying.
Yeah.
And it wasn't
I've researched, which I haven't done like extensive research on it, but like the apps that you get on your phone, like those do nothing. They're right.
And I'm like, guys, let's just like enjoy the ambiance here, and like let's just like listen to the guide and feel what we can sense anything that we're getting in our own bodies. And like,
we take some pictures and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, and we did take some photos too. I forget what building it was, but towards like the basement level, on the outside of the building. So like the guide was like, I don't know, something happened in the basement. So he's like, point your phone or your camera towards the base of the building where it hits the grass, and take some photos there. You might capture some orbs or something like that. And so one of the photos, I have like this green light that's literally just like a fog, which is so strange.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. I can't remember what the building was and what happened there, but I just remember the photo because it was like, oh, this is weird, because this green stuff is not on any other photo I have.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
Yeah.
Yay. So have you been to that restaurant in Toronto?
Do you know what? I actually haven't.
You need to go.
Yeah. There's like a million different other areas where that franchise like has popped up. I've been to another one downtown, but I haven't been to it's called the Mansion, like the Keg Mansion. So yeah, that's on my list. And
yeah, don't stand too close to the banister.
Yeah. Oh, and another thing about the banister. So because it's an old building, it needs to be maintained. So there's like a maintenance log that the staff fill out to ensure everything gets like taken care of and whatever. And on a specific day of the year, every year, this random banister, this picket on the staircase, somehow becomes unscrewed and mysteriously ends up on the bar top downstairs.
That's weird.
And so staff have actually logged this and then saw the pattern. They're like, oh, the same thing happened last year on the same day. And then like it's like going back in the past, and it's like the same thing has been recorded over and over again. So again, this trickster energy, maybe it's the children.
Is it the date that the maid died?
I don't know.
Or is it the daughter died? That would be crazy.
That would be crazy. I couldn't find a date of her death, but yeah.
That's something I love to do too with haunted places, is correlate like personal experiences with like historical fact and information.
For sure. Yeah, just to sync it up.
Yeah, it's just another level of or layer of like proof kind of
totally
thing. Yeah.
So yeah, I gotta go eat there, so I'll report back to you.
Yes, please. You're gonna be my like on location reporter.
Reporting live from the Cake Mansion in downtown Toronto.
I kind of want to do that though.
Okay, so book a trip, come here, and we'll go.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, let me get on that real quick. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've been chatting for a while, so I will definitely have you back on, because this is something. This is like the first of many of what I'm going to do on the YouTube channel. I'm also recording this on audio because I might start a separate podcast just for like paranormal and things like that. So yeah, I definitely want to have you back on to talk more things. And
I have many more stories to share, so I'd love to chat with you again.
Yay! Well, thank you, Vanessa, and you guys can go follow her on Instagram, arcanum.iter. Like I said, I'll put her information in the description. And yay! And if you're from Canada, comment below with some haunted Canadian places, and we'll send our field guide Vanessa out too.
I'd be happy to go check it out and verify. Report back.
I love it. That could become a whole thing, though. Like,
let's do it.
I'm going to recruit people in all of the states in the United States and somebody over in Europe. I love it. All right. Well, thank you. And
thank you so much, Cherise.
Yes, no problem. Bye, guys.